Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and at the end of 2021, I'd like to reflect with all of you. No, I'm not talking about setting up a New Year's resolution. Go to the gym, will ya? Because I certainly need to. Anyways, what we're doing is we're reflecting on Xbox. That's what's really important. That's what matters here. Xbox, in all seriousness, has had a really strong year. It's been a year that I think set the standard for what we should expect moving into the new generation of consoles. And with 2022 being really exciting, of course, and a lot of things on the horizon, I want to take just a moment here to look back on all that was accomplished with the criticisms that carried over from the Xbox One gen into the Series X gen, and see how 1 year later everything's looking, from the no games criticism to the status of Game Pass, xCloud, exclusivity. We're just sizing up Xbox. We're not pooping on PlayStation. We're not pooping on Nintendo, okay? Just talking Xbox. But before we go any deeper, a quick word from our sponsor. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go again. It's time to talk about the Thrustmaster eSwap X Pro controller. I know what's running through that noggin of yours. You're like, here we go. Matty's going to say the famous words, most customizable controller on the market. You're right. And I don't say this because they give me a script. I have no script for any of these ads that I do for this company. It's because I genuinely think so. For me, it's of course on a cosmetic level. I know this matters to a lot of you out there, the ability to mix and match these parts, make the controller look how exactly you want it to. But for me, more than anything, it's about those gameplay changing customization options you have. Some people do like the offset analog position, and you can have that, but you can also switch it so the analog sticks are directly next to each other. It's about whatever's comfortable for you to make you play the best way possible. This controller fits perfectly into my hands. The face buttons are nice and clicky, as are the analog sticks, so they're very responsive. We got to talk about those trigger stoppers, good for responsiveness online. This controller is guaranteed to improve your gameplay online, so if you're playing a little bit of, say, Halo Infinite, give this one a look. Again, it's the Thrustmaster eSwap X Pro controller, link down below. Starting off with an analysis of what I viewed were the major beats throughout the year. Now, these are subjective, but we're really talking first-party studios and highly marketed games. The reason I preface all of that is because most won't surprise you, but the first one will. We gotta talk about the medium. Yeah, it's available on other consoles now, but this was the first true, real Xbox next-gen exclusive title. And yes, while it was timed, it was made specifically for the series consoles because they said they couldn't do it on the Xbox One. They couldn't do it on the PS4. It was only for next-gen. And as we can see here, we used OpenCritic, screw Metacritic. We used OpenCritic, 75% critic average with 62% recommendation. The reason we're using OpenCritic is because it does factor in excellent YouTube reviewers like my good friend Carrick, Scale Up. I'm not on the site yet, maybe one day, but anyway, right now, we're seeing the beginning of 2021 wasn't too hot for Xbox. And if you remember my review for the medium, the words I used were yet another middling Xbox exclusive. There was a standard that was set and it was carrying over into the next generation already. It was one of those moments where you just sigh and go, here we go again, right? So this was not a good starting point. We knew a lot of the things that we were holding our breath for were at the end of the year. So let's keep that rolling along. I want to take a look also at the likes of Psychonauts 2, which came out to an 89 top critic average, with 97% of critics recommending Psychonauts 2, scoring extremely high. Probably one of the best surprises of the year was Psychonauts 2, a return to true 3D platforming, a really charming, emotionally and mental health driven story. Love that stuff. So this was really where you saw the confidence ramping up. But here's the thing. This is also going to PlayStation. It's the same way we felt about Deathloop, which scored extremely well. Yes, Arcane is now an Xbox studio, but they already had a deal in place for PlayStation. So with Psychonauts 2, when that came around, and of course there's other things that transpired between then with the medium and now with Psychonauts 2, people weren't ready to give Xbox their roses for exclusivity yet, for exclusive quality, and rightfully so. Xbox One's generation speaks for itself, as does PlayStation 4's, which was phenomenal. So let's keep rolling down the list. Afterwards, we got Age of Empires 4. This is the lowest scored one of the Xbox first-party studio releases at a top critic average of 83, with 84% of critics recommending it. I really like this one. I found myself positively addicted to it for a while. I can see why for some series vets it seemed to not score as high, but it's a really competent RTS, another great addition to the library, which has a lot of diversity there, and I think diversity is really key to growing Game Pass and growing Xbox in general. But still, another really positive score. Not quite as high as Psychonauts 2, not quite as recommended as Psychonauts 2, But then things turned around really quickly with Forza Horizon 5, the highest reviewed game of the year, with a 100% critic recommendation, which is insane to see, and a 92 top critic average. This game absolutely killed it, and it was a mastery of the formula for the team over at Playground Games. But again, people really weren't ready to give Xbox their roses. You've always gotten the racing games right, whether it was Forza Motorsport or Forza Horizon, you've always got those right. You know, and I get that. It was a known quantity for Xbox, and I was right there with people. I was like, yes, this is good to see, but I feel there's a lot of folks anxious just to give Xbox a lot of credits because they're having a pretty good year. So I understood where people were coming from. But again, you can't deny Forza Horizon 5 was an incredible racing game, an incredible open world game, a lot of fun, and absolutely the lead of its genre. But then it came down to really one game, one final release, Halo Infinite, the one I called the make or break moment for Xbox, to show the world that when you delay a game with Xbox, we deliver. When you work with Xbox, we're going to do what we can to make your exclusives the best they possibly can be. And not only that, but a statement for your flagship IP. And so when it arrived at a crisp 86 top critic average with 94% of critics recommending Halo Infinite, it seemed that Xbox's goal had been accomplished here. And it was very encouraging to see. I reviewed it, I gave it a buy rating. Pretty much everyone did, just on the basis of this is very fun to play. Xbox absolutely squished no games criticism this year. And I know it came in a year where PlayStation was kind of soft when you look at it. They were more front-loaded with the likes of Returnal, Ratchet & Clank, and Xbox really went hard at the end of the year with a ton of different monthly beats across both Game Pass, which we'll talk about in a second, as well as their exclusives. The Xbox One gen of no games is no longer a thing. When you look at what they've established in the future, we'll also talk about that. And what they delivered to us now, it seems those days are far behind us. What is Xbox now without Game Pass? This was the year we really saw it surge. Let's start off by talking about another significant part of Xbox's 2021, which was the addition of day one Game Pass games. And no, we're not talking first party. We're talking day one third party games. So we got the likes of Outriders, MLB The Show, which was one of the most mind-blowing moments of the year, seeing a PlayStation exclusive game get a deal worked out between Xbox and MLB to make its way to Xbox day one with Game Pass. Crazy stuff. We saw Dark Alliance come around, and that brought about a conversation between Outriders and Dark Alliance, at least here on my channel, that I do stand by, which is Xbox came to a point there where the day one hype faded really fast. It didn't matter, in my opinion, and in some others' opinions, I won't speak for everyone, that Xbox needs to check the quality of these games before diving in day one. It's good that it's money saved, and yes, you could play a bad game and learn like, hey, cool, I didn't have to buy that. Xbox Game Pass should be a platform which, when we invest day one and we get you that game, you can at least count on it working. I know Outriders was more on the server side of things, but Dark Alliance was absolutely terrible. And so that's when you lead it into E3, where you really saw Game Pass take the next big step forward, where they laid out an entire chart of month after month and sometimes week after week of significant drops on the Game Pass. We saw an investment in indies with The Ascent, Hades, 12 Minutes. We saw Origami 2 day one on Game Pass, Sable day one on Game Pass. We saw Back 4 Blood on Game Pass day one. And yes, even Back 4 Blood had its issues, but at least Back 4 Blood had its issues on a design front. We'd much rather that than, of course, a day one Game Pass edition, which is technically broken. But they laid out an entire second half of the year that pretty much stated to me as an Xbox fan, it's no longer just about exclusives. It's no longer just about first-party studio releases. We want to have third-party games releasing on Game Pass feel like your first-party releases. And the way that they make them such a big moment was really what I think punctuated that for consumers like myself, as well as all of you. A lot of us thought that was it for Xbox. Like, okay, that's our 2021, looking pretty sharp here. Can't wait to see some of these games. Some of them ended up getting delayed. Like, I believe the Anacrusis never came out in fall 2021. Scorn got delayed a whole entire year, getting the Halo Infinite treatment. So I found all of that quite interesting to see, because as the year went on, we saw new additions come to the Game Pass library. Stuff like Fate Tactics Mortal Shell. We saw cloud renditions like Dead Space and Dragon Age, to stuff like Day 1 drops, which I know this was not the best pick for them. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the Definitive Edition. It Takes Two, a 2021 game, which was ending up becoming the 2021 Game of the Year winner, was a Day 1 release. This was the same month that Forza Horizon 5 was landing Day 1 on Game Pass. So to me, what it stated also is, it's never done. It's never done. Like when you saw the layout of the rest of 2021, Xbox wasn't done at that point. So there's always the potential more could be added. And even the same thing you could say with the month of Halo Infinite, where you're thinking, this is the big one. Don't do a ton of different Game Pass things. Then they drop The Gunk. Then they drop Alien Fireteam's Elite, like 4 months after it came out. All it did this year was prove that this service will save you money and introduce you to games that you never knew you would love. It worked for me, worked for plenty of others out there. And so Game Pass took a serious step forward. My biggest concern, I think, upon reflection, is the quality of Day 1 games. I really want to make sure Xbox is checking them on a technical level, but also you can only make so much of an educated decision on the design front of them. But we really have yet to see like a consensus on a Day 1 Game Pass game that's going to be huge, that's going to sell millions of units, but instead goes to Game Pass. Like, we have really yet to see that. And I imagine we'll see something like Battlefield 2042 in a couple of months, but it's like, what if you got that Day 1? And I know it's a broken game, of course, but I'm saying on the level of a big name. That's what I'm trying to work out there. Like when Xbox can get that big name that also works, I wonder what that will be like, because Outriders, no one was really talking about it until it got put on the Game Pass. So it also proved this is a marketing machine. So a lot of parts are moving with this service, and now it's got a pretty established identity that we can ship your game Day 1, we can make you more successful, we can bring you more players, the work is never done, the release cadence is insane, and so I can't wait to see more of that in 2022. Speaking of 2022, they also laid out their future in 2021, talking about 2022, where we see the likes of Outer Worlds 2, Contraband, Starfield, Redfall Replaced, Slime Rancher, so many games coming out. Not all of them are dropping in 2022, but they established a lot of significant future Day 1 Game Pass titles, so money will be saved now and in the future. The reason all this was important to put ahead of this talking point is because we've seen Xbox's stance on exclusivity shift a little bit. Of course, your first-party exclusives are locked down. But remember what I said about how Game Pass Day 1 games almost have that exclusive feel? The reason I mention all of this is we've learned through the Apple and Epic court case that Stalker 2, one of the most significant Day 1 Game Pass additions to the 2022 library, will only be around for 3 months exclusively on Xbox. And that much seemed true when we saw Death's Door release exclusively on Xbox, an indie game, only 2 months later go out to the wild. So Xbox doesn't seem to be tying down these games for a long period of time, and as a gamer, I love that. We see what's going on. I always run to this example, and we'll be real screwed when we run out of it if they ever bring it over. But Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation is such an egregious example of what happens when the deal keeps getting extended, when the deal keeps getting pushed back, and it keeps getting pushed back and back and back. And even I would argue at this point now, Atlas, PlayStation, Persona, because Xbox has seemed to get every other JRPG on the map over time, not in the most adequate way, I'd say, but they eventually get it. But Persona's just nowhere to be found. Their approach to exclusivity is vastly different from PlayStation's and Nintendo's. They don't seem to lock down these timed partnerships for extensive period of time. I think of something like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on Switch. I thought for sure that'd be off the console within a year. Here we are like 2-3 years later, I think it is. It's still there. Xbox is taking a different approach. Doesn't matter how big or small the game is. They're not going to lock you down for a while. I think as a developer, that's definitely really awesome to see. So let's talk about the last piece, I think, of the puzzle for 2021, which was the expansion of xCloud. We all got our hands on it finally with the beta this year around April, I believe it was. We got to test it on, in my case, iPhone, iPad, PC. You can now stream games on xCloud to your console. We got to see what it was like to fire up a game on console, try it out on the cloud, and go, you know what? I want to play this. I'm going to download it so I can play it natively. We got to know what it was like to take your phone out and say, you know what? Boop, I'm going to play this game while I wait here. We got to know all of that feeling on a much wider level as they started to stress test those Series X server blades. And I know Android fans have been enjoying this for a while, but for a lot of us, this is new. And for a lot of regions, as they expanded to over 20 regions in the world, this is new. So I know it's been around for some, but for me and many others, it was new and certainly it solidified the expansion to, I'd say, more significant areas. Like, yeah, Android had it, but I think what matters more is Xbox One users can use xCloud now, and they can stream Series X games and trying out certain games to find out what they may want to buy when they get that fresh, shiny new console, right? There's a true benefit there. There's also the reality that some games will never be ported, right? I think of Fable on PC. Well, now you could say play Fable 2 on PC thanks to xCloud. So not everyone's missing out on everything. And that's going to be huge moving forward, especially in a supply-constrained environment. So xCloud needs a special shout-out, not just for the cool portability novelty of it all, which I love, but also the real use that you can get out of it, to test games before downloading them, and to test games before even purchasing them. That's awesome to see, and I can't wait to also witness how Xbox expands these offerings and how they make them, I guess, more consistent would probably be the best word, where lag spikes become a thing of the past, or at least very infrequent. And we're already seeing that a little bit within this year, so the future is very bright for that. All in all, I think Xbox, and I know people are going to call me biased or whatever, look, PlayStation's going to come out swinging next year. You never know what's going to happen, but I think Xbox did the best of the big three this year. I really do. I think they made a lot of meaningful steps forward with their first-party games, with Game Pass, with xCloud. Doesn't mean that PlayStation and Nintendo didn't do good things. They did. But I think Xbox did a lot of things more meaningful to the consumer. I think Xbox did a lot of things that'll speak to their future. And that doesn't mean that they were mistake-free. I think of things like the physical status of Psychonauts 2 and Halo Infinite. I think of the stupid move that they made with Xbox Live Gold. Like, what were you doing there? They're going to have brainless moves every single year. We're going to see that. But otherwise, I think it was mostly very, very good. And I walk away from 2021 feeling confident in Xbox's future, which is a good feeling because I remember when the Series X was coming around, my friend Dustin of Last Stand Media, co-host of Sacred Symbols, was like, do you want my Xbox pre-order? I was like, at first I said no. Then I went, okay, you know what? I'll take it. Why not, right? I want both next-gen systems. Like, it was a pure, I'll be honest, I'll be real with you all, materialistic move. I was like, yeah, let's just get both the shiny things, right? I'm going to have my PlayStation. I saw the games. It reminded me of the start of the Xbox One era. Like, okay, I want the games. But I went, you know what? Let's try Series X. Let's be fair. And it's been my most used console since. Like, it's been awesome. So they've done a great job this year getting me in not only on a third-party level, but also a first-party level. So shout out to Xbox on a great 2021. Can't wait to see what 2022 offers us. What do you think of Xbox's 2021? Please fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to the patrons, the members, for supporting all of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.